be training you guys on how to make a wire wrap cabochon pendant. Before we get started, I'm going to go over some of the tools we need and some of the things we need to know before we get started. So what you're going to need is 18 gauge wire, 26 gauge wire, a cabochon, your chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, wire cutters, and optional you can have bail making pliers. I'm going to be using them because they help a lot, but you don't necessarily need them. So for your wires, you're going to need 50 centimeter long pieces, 3 50 centimeter long pieces. For your 26 gauge wire, you're going to need a shorter piece that is 40 centimeters and a longer piece that is 140 centimeters. With the weaving wire, you can cut it ahead of time, or you can actually use it right off the spool. I decided to go ahead and cut it ahead of time. The first thing you want to do before you start is straighten your wires. This will make them harder so that in the final product you'll have a more secure piece, because wire is bendy, so you want to make it harder and you want to make it straight. You don't need to straighten your weaving wire. So these thicker ones are going to be our base wires, and the thin one is going to be our weaving wire. All right, so this 18 gauge wire is your base wire. You're going to take your short piece of weaving wire, you're going to find somewhere in the middle, and you're going to weave all 3 of these wires together. You may need to take your pliers as you're going and flatten it so that all these wires are next to each other and not stacked on each other. Okay, so I've come to the end of my weave, so I'm going to take my pliers and flatten the ends against the base wire. You want to make sure that both of your ends are going to land on the same side of the wire. This one is a little bit too long, so I'm going to have to cut some of it off. Whenever you're cutting your wire off, you want to hold the wire that way it doesn't fly in your eye and hurt you. All right, so there is our first wrap. Next, you're going to take your chain nose pliers, go right in the center, and you're going to bend this about 90 degrees. If your bend isn't perfect, you can kind of undo it a little bit and get it to where you want it to be. Like if it's not perfectly centered. Make sure that when you do bend it, that the pointy parts we tucked are going to be on the inside, not on the outside. This is where your cabochon is going to fit into the wire. So once you have that, you're going to designate a front and a back. So you'll take the wire in the front like this, and you're going to bend both of these ones forward. You want this to be like a pretty sharp bend. So once you have that, you're going to bend each one of these about 1 centimeter up, and you're going to do another bend like this on each side. Okay. Then you're going to take your back, the wires in the back, you're going to bend these two together like this. It's kind of so they meet. You can set your cabochon right in there. You can bend these two in the middle around your cabochon like this. And then you're going to take these two and flatten them up against the front. You can kind of push these out so it kind of goes with the shape of the stone. And then this is how it's going to stay secure. Next, you're going to take these three on each side and kind of bend them away from each other just to create some separation. And you're going to take your long weaving wire and weave all three of these together. You're going to want to go around about 6 times to make that secure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going to take your, if you can find them, try to grab the 2 wires that you had in front. But if you just grab any 2, it will be okay. Okay, and I'm gonna bend these down, and now I have these 2 wires. So you're gonna take the same weaving wire you have, and you're just gonna wrap these 2. You're gonna wrap these 2 for about 3 centimeters long. Okay, so I have about 3 centimeters here. This is going to be the bail. Before I bend that down, I still have this piece of wire right here that I will need to cut off. So I'm gonna try to keep it like on the side here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that. Okay. You can use your fingers, you can use your round nose pliers. I'm going to be using my bail making pliers, and I'm going to go ahead and bend that back. So that's, now you have a way to hook this onto a chain. At this point, you can go ahead and cut off this wire. Set that aside, you're going to use that later on. And tuck that. So you have 2 wires back here. You're going to take each of them and wrap them around the front. Now with this lower one, you're actually going to do a loop. With the top one, you're going to bring it forward and you're going to tuck it like inside here. So this is the wire. You can cut off this end. Take your chain nose pliers and just hide it in there. Then you're gonna take this and cut it right where it meets, okay? Be careful not to cut one of these other wires. So you'll cut that off. And then you're gonna wanna flatten that. Next, you're gonna take these 2 wires on this side and we're gonna start a weave. So this wire on top is the one you're going to start on. You're going to take your weaving wire and you're going to do 4 wraps around the top wire. Okay, so I have 4. Then I'm going to wrap around both of them, and I'm going to do this 2 times. And I'm going back around the top wire 4 times. Then I'm going to wrap around both of them twice, and that's your pattern. So it's going to be 4, and then it's going to be 2. Very simple. Okay, so I've got about 4 centimeters of wire of my weave right now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this end and cut it off and tuck it. Okay, then I'm going to take this other one, cut that off too. Okay, now you're going to take this weave, bend it up and around this. You're going to flip it around. We have quite a bit of extra wire. You can just go ahead and cut them about that far. Take your round nose pliers. Well, actually first we want to tuck these under here. Then take your round nose pliers. You're going to bend it back this way. Once you have those bends, you're going to kind of press them down with your pliers, with your chain nose pliers to secure that. Then you're going to take these 2 wires on this side, and you're going to loop them this direction, just slightly above the other loop you have. You're going to go over and then you're going to go back. And you're going to go around the front, under the loop, to the back again. Okay, you're going to do the same thing we did with those other 2 wires on this side. So first trim, you're going to want a little bit of extra wire. You're going to want to tuck these under this one. You might need to use your pliers to grab a hold of those a little bit. Take your round nose pliers, make a loop on each one of those wires. Chain nose pliers. Flatten them. flatten it. And then if you need to, you can make some final adjustments just by, you know, working it with your fingers or your pliers, however you need to. Like these in the back, you might want to bring them in a little bit. And you're done. So you're ready to make your own wire wrap pendant.